The morning that always began the same. Every weekday morning at exactly 5:30 a.m., the alarm rang in the small two-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Cleveland, Ohio. And every morning, Maria Thompson was already awake. She had been awake for years before the alarm ever rang. Maria moved quietly so she wouldn't wake her son. She tied her hair back with the same faded blue scrunchie she'd owned since her 20s, slipped on her worn slippers, and walked into the narrow kitchen. The linoleum floor was cold, but she didn't flinch. She never did. The kettle went on first. Then the stove. Then the old lunchbox came out of the cabinet, red, dented on one side, with a peeling Superman sticker. That lunchbox had seen better days. So had Maria. She opened the fridge and stared at what was inside. Half a loaf of bread, a small container of leftover chicken, a few apples, and a carton of milk nearing its expiration date. She smiled softly. "It'll be enough," she whispered to herself, as she always did. Maria moved with the practiced efficiency of a woman who had spent 17 years doing everything alone. She packed the sandwich carefully, cutting it diagonally, because Ethan liked it that way. She added an apple, sliced this time, because his braces made it hard to bite. She tucked a napkin inside and, just before closing the lid, slipped in a small folded note. She wrote one every day. "Have a great day, my hero." She closed the lunchbox and set it by the door. Only then did she allow herself a sip of coffee. Grew too fast. Ethan Thompson was 17 years old, 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, and already taller than his mother. But when Maria looked at him, she still saw the little boy who used to fall asleep on her chest during late-night movies. She heard his footsteps in the hallway. "Morning, Mom." His voice was deeper now. Older. Tired. "Morning, baby," she replied automatically, even though he hated being called that now. Ethan grabbed the lunchbox. "You didn't have to pack this," he said. "I wanted to," she said. He hesitated, then leaned down and kissed her cheek. "I'll be late. Practice." She nodded. She always nodded. After the door closed, Maria stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where her son had been. She placed her hand on her chest. That ache never shared. Maria worked 2 jobs. By day, she cleaned offices downtown. By night, she stocked shelves at a grocery store. She never complained. Not when her feet swelled. Not when her back screamed. Not when the doctor told her she needed rest. She couldn't afford rest. Ethan's college applications were due soon. Tuition loomed like a mountain she didn't know how she would climb, but she would. She always did. What Ethan didn't know, what no one knew, was that Maria had been skipping meals for months. Not because she was sick, but because her son needed to eat. She brushed it off when coworkers asked if she was okay. "I'm fine," she'd say with a smile. She was always a phone call no mother is ready for. It happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Maria was mopping the floor of a law office when her phone vibrated in her pocket. She almost ignored it. Almost. "Mrs. Thompson," a male voice said. "Yes, this is Officer Reynolds with the Cleveland Police Department." The mop slipped from her hand. "There's been an accident." The hospital tilted. Room. Ethan lay unconscious, bruised and broken. A drunk driver. Wrong lane. Wrong moment. Maria held his hand, her tears falling silently onto the white hospital sheets. "I'm here," she whispered. "Mom's here." Doctors spoke in careful words. "Severe injuries. Internal bleeding. Surgery needed." And then came the words that crushed her chest. "Do you have insurance?" Maria shook her head. "I'll pay," she said immediately. "I'll pay somehow." The doctor hesitated. "We'll do everything we can." She nodded, her heart pounding. She would give anything. A decision made in silence. That night, Maria sat alone in the hospital chapel. She stared at her hands, cracked, tired, trembling. She thought of Ethan's first steps. His first day of school. The first time he called her his hero. She made a call no mother should ever have to make. She signed papers the next morning. She never told Ethan. Ethan survived. The doctors called it a miracle. Maria called it love. But something had changed. She was weaker now, paler. She sat down more often. She smiled less. Ethan noticed. "Mom, you okay?" "I'm fine," she said. The truth comes out. Months later, a letter arrived. Ethan opened it by mistake. Organ donation confirmation. His hands shook. He confronted her that night. "You gave them your kidney," he yelled, tears streaming down his face. For me, Maria nodded. I'd give you my heart if I could. Ethan collapsed into her arms, sobbing like a child. I didn't ask you to do this. You never had to. The last lunchbox. On Ethan's first day of college, Maria packed his lunch one last time. She slipped in a note. No matter how far you go, you carry me with you. She watched him walk away. Her heart full, her body tired, but her soul at peace. A son who finally understood. Years later, Ethan stood on a graduation stage. He held the old red lunchbox in his hands. My mother, he said into the microphone, his voice breaking, taught me what love really means. The crowd stood, but one seat was empty. A mother's love doesn't ask to be remembered, it lives forever in the life she sacrifices for.